live here.
Oh,
Yes. I mean, I promise you, I have done this before. It mightn't look like it.
No, you're good. I'm just reading comments under my Twitter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're.
Well, there we are.
Oh, we already.
There we are. Well, I included a link to just the Capia Steam page as well in the description.
Cool.
So,
thank you very much.
Well, looks like we're live then.
Hooray!
I'm still learning it. I promise I have done this before, but I'm still learning myself. Well, I am joined by Anna. Oh, I might get your name wrong. Is it Anna Antinova?
Yeah, it's fine. Yes. You can just go and mimic, and I'm known by my second name, pseudonym.
Oh, yes. Well, one half of the developers, 2 for 2, who have just released your first adventure game, I believe, Capia. And
yes.
It was released on the 25th of January, 2022. And it's so far got some really, really good reviews. So first of all, huge congratulations on releasing the game, because I know how hard you guys worked on it.
Oh, we did. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a huge moment for us, and it was absolutely crazy yesterday. And I know you guys were writing, and I don't know. I was trying to answer every comment, but I don't know how well I did. But I mean, it was so cool that you all helped us, spread the word, and you shared our stuff. And I've seen it. I've seen everything, but I don't know if I got to all of you.
Well, it's it's an absolute pleasure. As I said before recording, you were really, really nice. The game looks really good. So I think we were all kind of invested. We were all, first of all, hoping it's really good, which from the reviews, people really like it. And actually, yes, on the chat, hello, Cryptic Hybrid. He also says it's on GOG. Which I forgot to include the link. Well, I will include the link in the description on YouTube, and I will include in the link for the podcast as well. So first of all, hello, Anna. How are you doing, first of all?
I'm doing good. I mean, I promised everyone a tired developer, but I think I'm kind of hyped now because I'm here live. Well, it is a very casual developer, so that's definitely true. Going to hold truth.
Yeah, no, you must be, because we are recording this the day after your game has gone live. So you must. How do you feel now, one day after? Are you able to relax now that the game has been released, or do you still feel the nerves, or do you still feel tired?
It is the weirdest feeling in the world. I swear I cannot grasp it. I cannot explain it right now. I think maybe when I'm going to be a grandma and I'm going to be like 80 years old and my walking chair or wherever grandmas have, that I will tell you more about this feeling. But right now, I don't understand. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Having something that's been produced with so much struggle and passion and love, and just see the world and see your reactions. It was your reactions were something that we could die for, really. I mean, it was absolutely astonishing. We did give some keys out to see reactions on Twitch and on YouTube. So that's probably what we did before the release. So we just sat down and watched our Capia and being played by different people, and it was absolutely astonishing. Very interesting experience, I must admit.
Yeah, how does it feel to see other people play your game that you've worked on? It must be a strange feeling.
It is a strange feeling. Well, we did have some. We did spend in testing for last 6 months. We spent in testing.
Wow.
So we were prepared to see other people play our game, but I mean, seeing it being played as a whole, it is different, because I mean, it is an adventure, and you need to check out the story. You need to see people dive into the story, understand characters, see how those characters come alive in their eyes and through their emotions and through their understanding of what's going on in this universe of Capia. And we got that, and it was really awesome to watch. It really
cool.
was.
Well, that sounds great. Well, we'll be speaking a lot more about Cap without spoilers. I
Yeah, I
need to
hope
add, in
so.
case people are worried, we will not be talking
If I make one,
spoilers.
just do this ding.
Well, there'll be no spoilers from me.
Okay.
But, well, of course, you're the developer. You can say whatever you wish about it. But before we talk about your game, Capia, I was wanted to ask you, well, first of all, I ask every developer I speak with to give a brief introduction about themselves, a member of the studio, and what are your favorite adventure games?
Favorite adventure games? Oh well,
That's usually the
I
most difficult question people tell
it
me.
is usually yes, but I always say Grim Fandango, and I mean you cannot go wrong with
You
that. I
can't
mean,
go wrong with that, really. That's a very good option, I think, too.
I mean, I can name few
Yeah.
maybe other ones, but I mean, I really like Still Life, for example. That's one of the older ones that I really enjoy, and the Dig was well, that's classic. But I mean, if we go something that relates maybe more to 3D, so that's probably Grim Fandango.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic
Mhm.
game, one of the
Oh
classics.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I
So,
mean, I have the best childhood memories with it, so I can't,
yeah,
you
no,
know.
myself as well. I think I bought it several times because I grew up kind of, well, between Spain and Ireland. And I think I played it
Mm.
in Spanish first, and then I played it in English.
Oh, cool.
And then I got re-released, and I still haven't played it, but I've got it a few times.
Oh.
um, but yeah, so no, absolutely. And are there any recent games? Have you been able to play any recent games since you've been so busy working on the game?
For the last 2 years, I mean, we've only played demos, and there are some magnificent demos
Oh,
available
absolutely,
right
yeah.
now. Especially indie community has grown
Hmm.
so incredibly strong. I mean, it's just mind blowing how strong games are right now that are indie produced, and to think that I don't know, it can be made with such a small forces that people are creating games with right now. I mean, it's usually teams of like one or
Mm.
five maximum. We have two people, and we were able to produce a 6 hour long adventure in 3D.
I mean, for me, that is astonishing. Like with yourself and your husband who have worked on
Oh,
this game and other indie studios, and the look of the games and just the games we say on the podcast that this is another golden age for adventure games.
I hope
Um,
so. I hope
that's,
so.
I believe so. I mean,
This genre deserves that. I mean,
absolutely, because
yeah.
we still can't cover even half the games that adventure games that are released. And we were actually saying in our Discord today that it's great because there are still a lot of traditional point and click adventure games, and there's more newer type of adventure games out as well. So I think it's a great time to be a fan of adventure games, whichever ones you prefer. So, well, before we get on, there was another question in the chat from Sean D, which I will
Oh,
get to
hello.
about your game. So, hello, Sean, and he also says congrats on the release.
Thank
But
you.
so before we get to talk about the game, would you like to see a trailer of your game that you've been working on the last 7 years?
Of course. It's such a delight.
Well, for people watching, I will attempt to put on the trailer now. And for people listening on the podcast, you can still listen. So let us hope that this works. So here is then a trailer for your new game, Capia.
Rennie, this is the last story before bedtime.
Grandpa, tell me how you went on the journey to save Capia.
It's a long story, Pumpkin.
Then tell me about your friend Builder Robot and how you tricked the cat in a mechanical suit.
Those are two different stories. This old trick only works on Zim.
But I'm still not sleepy. Can you at least tell me how the war started? You can always finish tomorrow.
I knew that was your question all along. I had set out to find the origin of the war between the East and the West. Little did I know that the beginning of my story would mark the end of our known world.
So that was a trailer.
Hey.
Capia, as we saw in the video, a funky apocalyptic adventure.
Indeed, it is. And I really like how it turned out, to be honest. It was a crazy idea, to write a scenario for something really short and, to fit those lines into this scenario. And I like that it really worked out because it was my first experience doing that. So,
well, you wouldn't have known because certainly very intriguing. Certainly I watched a trailer and I was thinking, I really want to, because I think it's, there's some trailers, especially for movies, that sometimes give away the story and you're like, okay, I've seen the entire movie, I don't need to watch it. But for this, I was like, I think we get just enough story, we get just enough about the world, but we want to know more. I really want to delve into this world to find out more. So I suppose that was my first question, and then I will get to the question from Sean D. First of all, what can you tell us about the story and the setup of Capia?
Oh, the story. Well, as a whole, the story is it's about two worlds. I mean, it's about the East and the West and the tension that they have between them. And the tension was created by propaganda. So we are going to discuss how propaganda influences our common lives. So that's like the big story about everything. But underneath lies the relationship between little girl Rennie and her grandfather Stefan. And then we're going to see how this works out, because I mean, Stefan, he's like this big muscular guy, and he's all manly, and then you have this his counterparts, Rennie, and the way we have our whole game built is each level they represent either Stefan or Rennie. So levels that we have built for Rennie, they have more puzzles, and they're like lighter, and you don't get so much stories. And then levels for Stefan, they're like heavier, you get this big picture of what's going on in this universe. You dive into this big story of this tension, of this conflict. So that's what we wanted to do. We divided everything into contrasting parts, and then we covered everything with a huge dome. So those contrasting parts, they're brewing inside of this secluded environment.
Yeah, I love the contrast. First of all, you said, the big story about propaganda as well, which I think is very relevant, for any time really, but especially I think now.
Yeah.
And also then this more personal story between the grandfather and the granddaughter, and in the contrast between them. So that looks really good. And then in the chat, then Sean D asks, are Rennie and or Stefan inspired by anyone in your life?
Fun. It is a tough question, because I think in a way it is, but as being a writer for this story, it is difficult for me to step away far enough to see the retrospective. Is it the word retrospective?
Yes.
Okay, so see it in retrospective, because maybe I think it's parts of maybe my personality or my husband's personalities, but I mean it's not a single person, but maybe a accumulation of single traits that we combined into one story. Because I mean the way this Stefan is, they are not like characters, but they are more of the way that we saw people as we traveled, and we traveled quite a lot over 5 years, and we lived in different countries. So we looked at people and we kind of made them into this kind of common trait for Stefan and common trait for Rennie. I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean, so sorry guys, I mean, this is right now you asked me a question and I'm trying to answer it like live, so this is the best you guys get right now. I will be thinking more about it, because I mean it's a really good question, but for right now that's what you get, because I mean
Yeah, no, I think you answered well. Well, Sean D will take the credit for that question. For that very tough question. Oh no, it's a very good question actually. But I was curious about that myself. But then I suppose you mentioned a bit about the world of Capia, and How did you? Because first of all, it was you and your husband. Were you the only people who worked on this game? It's a two-person team. Is that correct?
It's independent project. I mean, independent indie published, indie developed. But I mean, we did get help from Kickstarter. So I mean, you do need to count that. And with people who helped on this Kickstarter, it helped us tremendously. I mean, this last push. I mean, I don't know if we could have made it without them. I mean, seriously, it would have been like too big for us probably. Maybe we would make it, but it would take like another 3 years or something like that. And games do get old, and it was difficult on this very last step. But yeah, it was absolutely independently developed. I mean, I'm an artist and a writer for this project. My husband is an animator. He's also the Unity master, so that's very much the two of us. But I mean, we also had voice actors, and we had our wonderful musicians. I mean, how can we like go past our wonderful composers? And Thomas Palazzi, who is the main composer, who created most of our soundtrack, and we had two more who did who did the rest of them, and we have a few more soundtracks. And that was an idea. We wanted to have a couple of musicians because contrast. That's our crazy contrast idea.
Yeah, well, Sean D then said, thanks for the answer. I just really like how these characters are written. And so how did you and your husband come up with the idea for this game then? How did you come up with the idea for, this game in a funky apocalyptic world, as you mentioned? Because I love the idea. So just curious how you came up with it.
The world itself, I mean, stylistically, I think that's something that we've always done. I mean, that's so me and so my husband. It's just something that we like. So stylistically, it's like right there. But I mean, the whole idea, that's something that we came up during our travels. And we started from Latvia, and then we traveled to Israel, and then we also lived in Spain, and now here in Montenegro. But I mean, in every country that we lived, we noticed that there are some common traits. And there are also differences cultural differences. And the way we travel, we actually really like to learn a language a little bit and, dive into culture a little bit. So in the end, I ended up with a really poor knowledge of quite a few languages. But that was the inspiration behind Kapia. And the first location, Latvia. A lot of their locations got into the level 3, the city of our game. One of the location that's actually a street, that's actually a real street. It's a little bit altered, but a lot of houses you can, look at them and recognize them.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really cool, because when I spoke with Levu Bor, who made Gibbous, he mentioned that all the houses in the game, that they're all based on, I think, real houses in his hometown, Transylvania. So I really love it when developers do something like that that people can recognize. Oh yeah, maybe these are style in a country or a culture.
I guess it's a game. I guess it's a very close idea. I mean, to the developers. I mean, we will bring piece of ourselves into our universes. I mean, you can go past that. I think you guys know us a lot more than we know ourselves by playing, those games in a way.
No, that sounds fantastic. And so then you mentioned a little bit about the grandfather and the granddaughter. Was this the idea from early on that we would control? So we can control these two characters, as you mentioned. Was this the idea early on? How did you come up with the idea to play these two main characters and for them to have like these differences?
Well, first of all, my father figure was my grandfather, so
okay,
that was probably something that was really deep inside of me from the very early on. But the whole idea, it's already contrast. It's all there. So we thought of what can contrast best. I mean, little girl and big bold guy. We really wanted to show, because of this split universe, the split world, we wanted to show how differences can become similarities. And I think when you play Kapia and play for one character, and then you play for Stefan, for example, and then take a notice of how he behaves with people and how he answers questions, and then you play for Rennie, and you really notice those traits of being. We try to show that they are family, and we even some of the movements that they make the same, kind of gestures, so you can really notice that.
Lovely. So you animated the same gestures for the two characters?
For some of them, yeah, it's just a little, inside. You won't notice, unless you look for it. But I mean, it's there, and I think that's a nice detail. And we did put a lot of details and arches into the story and in the whole game, so it can express what we meant better.
Fantastic. No, again, I love these little details that you guys have added, kind of to show, add more add personality to the game and to the characters. And then what about, we spoke a little bit about the main characters. What can you say anything about some of the other characters that we might meet in the game? Of course, without any spoilers. But there's some interesting looking characters in the trailer. Was there?
Oh, I bet you mean that cat.
Yes, there's a cat. I think that was in a suit, and there's a big robotic head. So over to you. What can you say again without spoilers? About these characters that we will meet.
Oh, you will meet if you like robotic cat in a mechanical suit, you are in for a surprise. We are going to meet a lot of interesting characters, and we're going to learn their stories. And the way copy is built, basically you learn about characters' personalities, not the main characters, but I mean the secondary ones. From Rennie, or rather from their treatment of Rennie. We thought that it would be interesting because I think it's very showing how, when people treat children, I mean, differently, how it is. I think it's very showing what kind of people they are.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have this, not very pleasant person who is treating, little girl meanly or maybe rudely, so you understand that this person is, even worse than he would have been if he would have treated Stefan the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense, or stopped making sense after release immediately.
No, I think I get you, that we can tell what the characters are like based on how they treat children, so we can see that in the game, which again is another, I think, a really interesting perspective as well. You can see things from the perspective of a child then. But yeah, no, so there are some really cool looking characters. So it's some good characters, and I mentioned, and as you mentioned, some other characters if they treat the character, rudely as well. Right. Also, I believe from the Steam page and from the description that there is a war. I think, is there a war between the East and the West?
Right.
And also, what kind of made me laugh is, there is a mysterious intelligent infection that is forcing people to live under city lockdown.
Exactly.
Have you guys? So you started this game, was it 6-7 years ago? Are you guys able to predict the future?
I really hope I don't have this power. Please don't put me into this, position of responsibility.
Yes, it's all on you. But no, I think it's very, very curious because I think, like a few years ago, if we read that, we probably thought, oh, post-apocalyptic, and that will never happen.
Exactly.
But last 2 years has shown, oh, this actually can happen. But I suppose, what can you tell us about the world? You mentioned a little bit about with propaganda and that. What can you tell us about the differences between East and West in this game? And
sure.
Infection.
So one side is all about bionicle, and the other side is all about mechanical. So we have this contrast as well.
Okay.
And that's where they actually collided, basically, on this on this ground. And then I don't want to give you spoilers.
Well, I think that's we can say that's enough.
Maybe because I mean that's the main difference. That's the main difference here, and I mean it's all about because I mean we want to discuss exactly the contrast, and we want to discuss the meaning of propaganda and how propaganda is. Okay, I'm gonna give you a little spoiler because I mean I can describe it without.
Full disclosure, but yeah, go ahead.
This is what we have about the propaganda is basically the disease.
Okay.
But of course, in Copia, it's going to be in a little bit different form. But that's the whole, this is the big idea about it.
Okay. Well, when I play this game, maybe we can come back and do a spoiler discussion.
Spoiler discussion is going to be. I'm going to write it in big letters. Spoiler discussion.
But right now there will be
only for players.
Exactly. But yeah, no. Right now, at least. So the propaganda, as you mentioned, is the infection. I'm really curious to. And can you tell us what Capia means or Capia stands for, or is that a spoiler as well?
No, it's actually not a spoiler because it's something that I completely came up with, and then it just grew into something crazy. I mean, that's again where I say no, I'm not seeing the future and anything like that, because when we moved to Montenegro and we as we always do, started learning a little bit of language, it turned out that Capia it means gates in here.
Gates?
Yes, gates.
Okay.
I mean, it's actually a word that means gates. Or I mean, it's written a little bit differently, but I mean, it's very similar to this word. And it was like, oh my God, if I were to come up with any meaning for this word, this would be the perfect one. I mean, this would be the perfect one to name a game after.
Okay, well, that answered that question. Thank you. So moving on from the story then, I think we can move on to the gameplay itself. Now, you mentioned a little bit about the puzzles, depending on the contrast between the two characters, the grandfather and the granddaughter. Right. So what kind of puzzles then, more or less, can we expect with the two characters?
Oh, you know what we read reviews, each review, and I mean we read it and then we reread it, and especially good ones. And
that's good.
And luckily there are good ones, dominating the good one. So my husband is listening in, I swear.
He can join us if he wishes to.
Okay, so with the reviews, and the best part about the reviews was that the puzzles are logical. And that's what we were fighting to achieve. And I mean, I'm so happy that, because it's so difficult to hit someone else's logic with your own logic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so happy that we actually managed to do that, because of the reviews we're getting. But the puzzles, I mean, we constructed them for the story, and I think that was the good decision to be made. So yeah, I mean, you can disassemble things, you can assemble things, you can, try different. There are some conversational puzzles, and there are also a lot of mini games. That we implemented into the story. And I like how they, it's something different. I mean, you do puzzles, you do hard mind work, and then you switch to a mini game.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. But as you mentioned, it must be very difficult to find a balance of, as you say, logical puzzles that are challenging, but maybe not too challenging. But then for different people, the puzzles are, different kinds of challenges. Some people might find them very difficult, others might find them very easy.
Exactly. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry. You could.
Because I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a moment, because I mean, with the challenge and stuff, this is why we added hints. So we actually have hints inside the game. So if it is too challenging, you can open up a hint, and I know they're very useful. I love using that as well. And then you have tab options, so it highlights your objects and things like that. So I know the game it isn't like a simple game. It's not like you would just sit down and the kind this kind of stuff. No, you do have to think of how to do certain things, but I mean, in general, this is why you have hints, and this is why you have.
I'm delighted you mentioned that because I've been saying for games and adventure games in particular, one way I think that it can help with accessibility or even with people, if we're stuck and without going to a walkthrough, would be to have a hint system and also the hotspot highlighter, which you mentioned as well. How did you come up with the hint system? Because other developers have told me that it was challenging for them to, come up with the hints that, because to try and figure out at what points the players are in the game, what puzzle they might need help with. So how did you guys approach it?
Oh, basically you have hints for everything. I mean, for every puzzle you have hints. For every action you have hints. And then it's up to you to choose to open it up or not. And it will, at a certain period of the game, at a certain period of time, it will open an appropriate hint for you. It will suggest an appropriate hint. So, and then you have a timer, and I think it's 3 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, because we were trying to adjust it perfectly too. But right now, I think it's set to 3 minutes. I think it's a good time, just to give you a little bit of challenge, so you just don't go, click, 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 and through the game. You got to think a little bit. But yeah, I think I like how it turned out. I mean, I'm satisfied with it, and I've seen it being helpful for people on streams. So that's very good because I mean, I'd imagine that doing a stream is additional challenge because I mean, you sit there and you have a certain period of time where you're active and you need to just go through it, and so that's something that we're really fond of indeed.
Yeah, well, I am too. First of all, logical puzzles that make sense, but then also optional hints as well, because sometimes, I mean, I like to try and figure them out myself, but sometimes I need like a little nudge in the right direction.
Exactly.
And, rather than, going out to a walkthrough outside a game. So I think this really helps. So I'm delighted to hear that.
So this way you don't fall through this fourth wall, you don't go outside to the internet, you just stay in contact.
Exactly.
Right.
No, that sounds really good. I'm delighted to hear that. And because there are some people who still, more of the traditional people say, no, we don't want any hints at all. We don't want, but if it's optional, I think
it's optional. Yeah, you don't want them, you don't need them. And
exactly
the way the game works, the first thing you're being asked is, do you want hints? Yes or no? So
perfect.
And if you decide that indeed you do, after a while, you can turn it on and you can enjoy it.
Perfect. I mean, I think that's the best way, personally. So I'm delighted to hear that you guys have done the same. And then I was reading on the store description as well that are there two ways to play the game, that is point and click and with the controller. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And under point and click, there is two options of clicking. I don't know how to describe. Okay, because I mean, you can just click and drag, or you can click, drag, and click. Upon release. For the object, so you have that control as well in the options. You can choose whichever is more suitable for you, and just a little bit, more adjustments there. And yes, controller, absolutely, it's a controller completely supported in the game. So we implemented that as well, and that's something we really wanted to do. But I mean, we just thought it may be a bit of a too much challenge, but my husband, he really wanted to do that for Copia, and with this first with this first person view with our hands, I think it really works well together. And I think of Copia as a more modern classical adventure, because I mean the style is classical. I mean, we have those puzzles are quite classical, and the way we do modeling, I mean, it's kind of nostalgic style, I would describe it this way. But the whole gameplay, it's much faster paced, and so I think it's easier, and with those hints, it lowers level of challenge as it used to be in older classical games, I believe.
Yeah, no, I feel like this game was made for me, because everything you're saying, I'm like, I mean, I think the more options, if possible, the better. to give players. Now, I do understand with indie studios and resources, but I think it's great that you were able to add both options. Was it a big challenge to make the game both point and click, and then point and drag and click, and controller as well?
It was. especially with testing, because this is why we spent so long in testing in the last period of of development, because after you make any change in the game, you have to go through through the game, and it isn't a short game. I've seen people go through it in 5 hours, but that's the fastest that I've seen people do it. Maybe 4.5, something like that. But you probably need to click through some dialogues.
I never do. I try not to, because
if you won't, I estimate probably maybe as long as 9 hours.
Wow, that's a very good length.
It is because if you read posters, if you read information inside computers, and if you do go through those puzzles in kind of a chill mode, not oh my god I need to solve it, then I think it can take as long as 9, but you can generally maybe 6, something like this.
Okay, no, that's
in this range, I'd say.
No, that sounds really good, because I like to, take my time with. There's so many games to play. It's very tempting to nearly rush through them, but I also like to take my time with them. As you say, you click on all the options and click on all the hotspots. And I think especially with a game like this, where there's so much attention seems to be given to the whole world as well, I think it'd be great to click on, mention the posters and the hotspots to discover more about the world as well, rather than just rushing through the game. That's my opinion. Exactly. That's the way I would like to play, but I know different people play different
This is
ways,
how I would like to see my game being played today.
Well, no, I'm looking forward to it. And now it looks fantastic. You mentioned it's in 3D as well, that it has a 3D design. So first of all, which engine did you guys use for the game? And
it is Unity. We did it all on Unity, and we selected it to have this cross-platform option. What we didn't expect is the length of the development. We did as every developer always
I think everyone says that.
oh my God, how did it happen? 6 years later, it was supposed to be a 2-month project.
And then it becomes 6 years. There were several people that I've spoken to, some people who were over 10 years working on their game.
Right.
And it started off small, but then it became bigger and bigger. And 10 years later, they're still working on the game. So it can easily happen from what I've heard.
It is. And the funny thing is, it was a completely opposite for us. It started bigger and then we compressed it. Because originally, Copia was supposed to come out in 3 parts.
Okay.
But, so you would have like 2-hour gameplay at a time. But then in the middle of development, we decided to do a whole game. Release it as a whole. To be honest, I don't remember why. It was a long time ago. I just remembered, and I was like, why did we do that?
Well, look, it seems to work, because now the full game has been released.
Yes, we made it. So maybe it was a good decision because we made it. So.
Yeah, and because what are your thoughts on episodic games then as well? Because this was planned, you said, to be episodic. Do you like it when games are released episodically, or maybe do you prefer full games now, the way Capio is released? Or does it depend on the game? Maybe
it depends on what people are trying to do, because sometimes they're trying to just extend the game to a crazy length, like this soap opera kind of thing. But when people originally have like a 3-part game, I don't have a problem with that. I understand if they are on schedule. And we are hardly ever on schedule. But if they know what they're doing, if they have a whole story written out in the beginning, and this is what they want to do, this is what they have their mind set on, that's where they're going with. I don't have a problem with waiting. I mean, you just end in a good spot, and I'm cool with that. I'll replay the first part after that, so no problem. But if people are just trying to do a soap opera, I don't know about that. Maybe there are people who like that too. We're all different, and so this is my personal preference. Absolutely,
Yeah, that's I think that's very fair. So then, about the look of the game, you said you meant to use Unity, and it's in 3D. Why did you decide to use 3D? Were you thinking of did you ever think about doing it in 2D, 2.5D, or 3D? Were there any advantages that you think 3D gives to the game over other options?
No, I believe in 3D as having a lot of advantages. I mean, first of all, you have this. I don't know, it's 3D. Maybe it's a matter of taste, but I'm a 3D artist. That
explains it.
I can't do 2D, and recently I actually picked up some art classes and started, doing a little bit of painting and maybe doing some watercolors. But for most of my career, I've been doing 3D stuff. And it's just, for me, 3D universe is more natural. It feels better. I understand it better. And I think it does give more options in terms of puzzles and in terms of character interaction. That's in my opinion. But it can be done with 2D. It all depends on the style, really, and probably personal preference of an artist. I can enjoy 2D just as much as 3D. Having someone make the game, but if I were to make a game in 2D, I probably wouldn't, because that's not me. But as a product, I can enjoy it absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm the same. I enjoy both 2D and 3D games and 2.5D and text adventures. I think whatever suits the developers and whatever suits the game as well.
Text adventures are awesome.
I haven't played as many of those, but I think whatever way you want to tell a story, make the game. I think whatever suits the developers. And then with the voice actors, which we heard on the trailer and which you mentioned, what can you tell us about the actors that you got? Because they sounded pretty good.
Oh, they're awesome. They're awesome. They are amazing. Sarah and James, they did fantastic job on our main characters. And, well, we met 5 years ago on Fiverr.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I know. It's crazy. And the thing is, with most of our characters, it's about giving a thought and a chance to people, because there are so many wonderful artistic people who need, recognition. Just, think with your ears and with your perspective. When you, that's I don't know, maybe a piece of advice. I've just had a great experience, and I think it turned out awesome in my opinion, and I haven't heard people complained about it. Because those the voice actors were completely hand selected. They're what I wanted to hear from exactly this character, and we did have a bit of an audition for our characters, so we didn't just say whoever can. But in the end, the funny thing is that I've heard from one of our actors. I ended up sending him a picture of a character so he would have a better understanding of what he was doing, and he looked at the character and was like, "Oh my God, what did you do? This is me."
Wow. So you can predict the future and you can see what the voice actors look like. Those are some pretty impressive talents.
Hey, I don't claim that. But it was kind of a cool moment. But I don't know. Do people sound like their voices? In a way, I guess they do.
Yeah, I guess so as well. It's funny because sometimes, if I listen to a podcast or something and I hear the voices and then I see the way they look, sometimes it surprises me. I think, wow, they look like that. I thought they would look completely different. But yeah, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's more or less how I picture they would look like. So,
So I think that's what pretty much happened there. But I mean, it was kind of a pretty cool moment for me.
And then how did you go about, directing them? Was it remotely as well that you were working with them? And how was that process?
Yeah, we did remotely. We did everything remotely. And you've seen our budget, right? I mean, we went to Kickstarter.
Oh, of course. That's what's most impressive about this game. That it looks like a very expensive game to make.
Well,
It's really impressive.
Thank you. Well, we tried. We really tried to make it as good as we can on our very modest budget, because we only have two people working on this project. Basically, at its core, I mean, it's me and my husband. It also means that we don't really have a lot of luft on getting funding in.
Mm.
So we really did have to think of how to make it on, as on budget as we can, because otherwise, I mean, we could pay like expensive actors probably, but then we would have to work for probably few months or so, to pay for them, and that would take away from the development.
Mm. Absolutely, yeah.
So this took a lot of sacrifice on our side, obviously. I mean, we did have to downsize quite a bit on pretty much everything. But I mean, we're still together.
Well, that's good to hear.
So we survived. As a team.
I think that's the main thing. That's the most important thing. And I suppose, because I've spoken to, I think, other, couples who worked on a game as well. I spoke to the Coles before, Laurie and Corey Cole, who made Quest for Glory, and yeah, it's interesting that they work together. And how did you and your husband work together then? Did you work together? Did you go to different rooms sometimes, or if you ever had any disagreements or different ideas, how did you work through those? Was it easy, I think, or was it more challenging at times?
Yeah. After 2 years, it became a little bit less challenging. Well, I must mention that we are married for 18 years.
Oh wow!
Hold on. Maybe it's 17 years. Maybe I just like. Okay, it's close. It's somewhere there. I'm horrible with dates, but after we got married, we started working together immediately. So
wow.
I mean, we have this.
So you're used to it.
Yes, and it was challenging in the beginning. I mean, seriously, I mean, without any kidding around. I mean, first 2 years they were tough. I mean, work-wise, because constructive criticism, it comes, in different forms. And when you have this in the family environment, I mean, if you're at work, I mean, and someone comes in, criticizes you, can you just, go home and tell your wife or your husband or your cat that, oh my God, this horrible person at work, they were just so mean to me, and, we'll just, forget about it for now and just watch a movie. But I mean, when you're stuck in the same environment, in the same room, you just keep discussing it. Basically, you're always in this constant improvement. But you know what we did? We made this kind of challenge. We made it into something that's interesting, because you can argue or you can create something together. After a while, this is what it came to, and after that, it really stopped being challenging, I believe. I mean, we still have some tension from time to time, because I mean, we are both artistic people, and my husband, he also has artistic background. He also studied art, and he's an animator. So I mean, once you have an artistic person and another artistic person, collide, it just you're bound to have some disagreements. But right now, it's a pretty calm environment, I must say.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, look, you continued working on the game for 7 years. You released it, and it looks really good. And you're still together, which is the main thing.
Yes. We can make more.
Yes. So then, very quickly, then you mentioned the music. You got musicians. What can you tell us about musicians? What kind of music were you looking for Capia?
We had a bit of audition there as well. what we were looking for is a little bit mysterious, but also a little bit romantic in a way. But it also had to sound a little bit kind of, apocalyptic, robotic.
Okay.
So we added an organ, and I think that's a really nice part of the soundtrack that we have by Philip Horvath. And Thomas Palazzi, he did an amazing job on all of his compositions. I think my favorite one is with the mother, and I actually listen to our soundtracks. I mean, really, I turn them on and it just goes in a loop, and it doesn't go all surprisingly, because I mean, you can imagine how many times I've played the game and
And how did you listen? Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I don't, you see, I'm a bad person to ask about this, because I mean, in the end, what we ended up doing is for each track, we had a little short demo that our composers sent to me. And I would approve or disapprove. And most of the times I would just approve, because I mean, because they would hit it on the spot. And what I did on my side, I would send materials that we have on the level. So I would make a lot of screenshots, and I would describe what we are having, what we have going on inside the level. So then I just assumed, this is out of my hands. And this is the same system that we did with our voiceover actors. Because I mean, we need to. I tried it a couple of times, because especially with voice acting, it's so easy to just say, "Oh, this sounds not like I would say it," So this is bad. But on the other hand, we're different people, and characters are different, characters. So maybe what you think he should or she should sound like isn't how it should sound. Maybe someone has different interpretation. So I figured whenever I tried to go and influence voice actors, I ended up with something that we ended up with going back to the first, first take on it. So this is the system that we followed with our composers. So this isn't me, this is them. I mean, my part was to send them screenshots and maybe just kind of give them directions, because sometimes I did have to disagree with them, because I know what's going to follow, I know what's going to happen in the other levels where they don't, which was corrected, I mean, immediately. And we had a really good partnership with our composers. I mean, Thomas, he's absolutely awesome. I would recommend him anytime to anyone. I mean, he's just a really easy person to work with. So
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, really good experience.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And yeah, no, I mean, and is the soundtrack available as well? Did I see? Is it available on Steam or?
Steam and GOG, we did soundtrack.
Also, it's available on both.
It is available on both, because I mean, people were requesting it, so we decided.
That's good.
Yeah, so this is the first probably something that we didn't think of. The first thing that people commented on, are we going to have a soundtrack as well? And so we were thinking, okay, we have all this amazing soundtrack already, in the album, so why not make it available for people? So we did.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, so people can listen to it then separately as well. And and we mentioned that the game is available on Steam and GOG and on GOG. I don't say that very often about games because it seems to be kind of difficult to get your game released on GOG. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank
I think
you.
that sounds like an achievement. I mean, I don't know much about the process, but it sounds, from what I've heard, it sounds like it's just an achievement to have your game released on GOG.
No, this was entirely brought to us by our magnificent community. We had the whole story about it, and I was like, okay, because do you want to hear the story?
Yes, I think certainly.
Okay.
I think
Okay, so
I'm going to speak for everybody watching and listening. I think the answer is yes.
All right, you guys asked for it. So it started back when we presented our first demo, and it was like the very first take on Copyam. at the and we presented it in Croatia. We presented in Croatia, and we were we had our booth, and we were like expecting, people come in and look at it, and we were going through green light at the same time. You remember back when Steam had green light?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
It's just
yeah.
like that sounds
So
familiar.
it sounds familiar. We went through that.
Oh wow, that's
through that green light, and successfully it was a lot of stress, but yeah, we went through that, and we were going through green light, and we were at this booth at this conference, and then we were approached by a representative from GOG, and he was like, okay, you're having a pretty nice project going on. I was like, oh wow, cool. And he gave us his card, and I was like, okay, when you guys are done, you can just email us your stuff, and we will assess it.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, nice. And it was just, we have the GOG card. Cool. We went back, and then after that, we moved 2 times. So we went from Croatia to Israel, and then from Israel, we went to Montenegro, and somewhere on that way, we lost that card.
Oh.
I mean, and I had no idea that we lost it until we actually had to, do something about it. I mean, we already went through Kickstarter, and I was like, on Kickstarter, it was like, okay, we're going to be available on GOG. It's no problem. I mean, I've seen my first version. I mean, right now, what we have right now is definitely better than what we had back then. I mean, so it's obviously shouldn't be a problem. But then I don't have this card, and I tried to write to GOG, and they have this the way they work. You just need to write to this single email address, and then hope that they will notice you. Which I mean, I imagine they have like, I don't know, hundreds of emails coming in every day.
Yeah.
So I bet this makes it quite challenging. And so I just, I was so angry at myself. I don't know. I just looked everywhere for this card, and I to this day, I don't know where it went, but it was just gone. And I was just, okay, community guys, this is what happened. I told them the story, and I told the story to my Kickstarter, because I mean, I just went honest with it, because I mean, I know it's crazy stuff, but that's what happened. And you know what they did? They started adding at GOG. They started writing on their forum. And after that, I got contacted by their representative.
Was it the same person who had contacted you?
Oh,
before?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Okay. But they were representative of GOG. That's the main thing.
Yes, they're the representative of the GOG. I was like, oh my God, it's GOG. And of course, we sent them the key to our work, and we were back, and we already had a key, and we were going to release in like a week, and they would say, okay, we won't have enough time. And then we postponed our release, and they got back to us and said, okay, now maybe we will have enough time. So send us the key, and we will look at it. So they looked at it, and they said, no problem.
Wow.
So that's the long story that we have, and I know it's a little bit.
No, but it's great. There was a happy ending to it as well.
Yes.
Because
I'm so happy that it has the happy ending, because I mean, for me, the hardest part was, telling people on Kickstarter that we are going to have GOG, and then not having it. That was the most difficult part for me, because I mean, I could live with probably, what can you do? How Yanis says in our game, I'm self-quoting, it's horrible. But
oh, I think you're fair enough. I think it's fair enough to quote the game if it's, it's well written. You spent so long on it, you probably know the game off by heart. So
I do.
No, but I'm delighted to hear that you were able to get it back on GOG. I mean, look, I think the best option is to be honest as well, to the Kickstarter. And
I think, I just owe it to people. I mean, they did put our trust in us. I mean, I understand, like, investing your money it's some tough stuff. I mean, it's not just like, you don't do this every day. I mean, they invested their money, they invested their trust in us, and then me going there and lying to them would be just horrible. So this was the most challenging part for me, letting them down, really. And so I'm so glad that it didn't happen,
Yeah, no, it's fantastic that it's available on GOG and Steam. And so, as we mentioned, being available on GOG, I think that's kind of like a seal of approval for a game, because they don't just let any game. It seems to be very challenging process that they only decide one particular game. So, huge congratulations on that. And Amy Tant, who is Summer B as well, she said, congrats on the Cappy release. Looking forward to playing it.
Thank you. I hope you like it.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure we will. Sean D says, I'm going to be playing it tonight.
Awesome. Leave us some feedback. Leave us some feedback. We really need it right now. This is what happens. Guys, I know that every developer does this, but the reason that we do is not because we, trying to force something onto you. And if you don't want to, okay, it's all right. I'm just gonna, state my opinion and about this, because this is how we, as indie developers, this is how we can kind of get this visibility in a challenging world of AAAs and people with publishers. So for us, for people who are doing this completely independently without, any help in marketing, this is very important. So if you have a minute, and I understand if you don't want to, it's okay. I don't enforce it on you, but if you do get a minute, it does help a lot. Yeah,
so if people can leave reviews, it can be quick reviews on Steam, on GOG.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, it really, really does help. So especially if you like it, especially if they're indie. Sean D says, I promise that a positive review is coming as soon as I finish a good bit of the game.
I hope you'll enjoy it. I really do.
I'm sure we will. We will review it on the podcast just as soon as we can as well.
Cool.
So looking forward to that. But and now before we finish up, because I know I'm taking up more of your time than I said I would, but with the controller, since it's point and click and controller as well. Do you have any? Now you don't have to say anything if you don't, if you're not able to. But do you know if you might be able to release it on consoles maybe in the future, or do you think only PC for now?
Oh, okay. So the thing with consoles and with actually Mac and Linux.
Yeah,
I can never say Linux. I can never say it correctly. I don't know why.
My pronunciation is terrible, as anyone who listens to the podcast knows not to go by my pronunciation.
All right, guys. It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. It just means I can't say it. But the thing with those, this whole complex is that we, because we had such a long development, our Unity version right now is kind of old. By saying kind of old, it's drastically old. We need to update it, and to do that, I just can't say how long it can take, because the last time we did app update to the newer Unity version, it took I think a few months, and we already went through this, so I know it's a hard process because we already went through this during the development. So this time, I just can't estimate the amount of time it will take. It's not going to take years upon years, but it may take some time. So, and we are covering, because we didn't hit this stretch goal on Kickstarter, we are covering it from our own pocket. So please, guys, understand us. We want to do it. It's in our own interest, because we want to do consoles, we want to do Mac, and we want to do Linux, and we want to do all this. We want to support, with our work, your community, because I know it's important to you. But right now, what I can say about how things run, we do have a couple testers who went through the game under Linux on Proton emulator.
Yeah, I'm sure people do understand that it's a well, most people know it's a challenging process.
It's basically a thing that makes it looks like Windows. I don't know how it works. Okay, I don't. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. But I can't say, but I can say it properly. So I probably shouldn't. Because I'm not a technician on this team. My husband knows more.
Well, look, you guys have just released a game that you've worked so hard on. So what I would say is you deserve a bit of a rest. First of all, that's what I would say. And I think I can speak for a lot of people. I mean, I'm just saying that now. Yes, I speak for everyone, let's say. No, but I would say you can afford to take a bit of a rest for as long as you guys wish, because you've released a game, worked already 7 years on it, and it's getting really good reviews. And Sean D said, I know how important it is to satisfy the almighty algorithm. And he said, and he said, I'm going to leave a nice, proper, long, heartfelt review, not a piddly little one-liner.
Oh, thank you.
So you got Sean D, who is really supportive anyway. And then I guess the final question then, I mean, I know you just released this game, do you plan in the future, do you have, again, if you're not able to answer it, no problem at all. Do you plan on releasing more games in the future? Do you have any other ideas? Would there be maybe more set in the Capia universe, something different, or are you done now? Is this experience now?
No, we're not done. We're not done because I mean, we went such a long road. I mean, to get to this point. This was an idea, and this was an idea to get this new career. So you can expect more games from us.
Okay, that's good.
Because I mean, we already have a lot of ideas, and a couple of them are really well thought out ideas. I would say that, and I think you will be pleasantly surprised because we're going to go creative with it. But I mean, right now we just had a release, so maybe
of course.
a little bit too early.
We want to start working immediately on your next game.
I don't mind starting working. I don't mind that, but I mean, just I don't want to lower the excitement for the copy. Because we don't need to fund the development, guys. So if you want to see more games, we need you to buy this one.
Yeah, so go out and buy Capia, leave reviews, and Kieran says people with Linux will know what you mean. It sounds brilliant.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you can try it already.
Yeah, well, I think that's all the questions that I have for you, Anna. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine.
Well, that's great. Is there anything else that you would like to mention that we haven't covered, that we haven't said? I mean, we've said leave reviews on Steam and GOG. Is there anything else that you would like to mention or talk about?
I do. I want to thank everybody who supported us through these long years of development, and there were people who were with us from the very beginning of the project. It was a little bit crazy, but I mean, you guys were absolutely amazing. I don't think we could have done it without your help and without your support. It was absolutely awesome. I mean, you guys are marvelous. We have the best community around us. I don't know. I'm just lucky. I'm crazy lucky. You guys are awesome. So.
Well, right back at you, because I think you could most of the time you can tell, I think, online, who's a good person, who's a nice person, who's not. And I felt immediately when I first, saw your comments and started chatting with you, I thought, oh, Anna seems really nice. And I think she is really nice. And I think a lot of people will agree with me, because this is the first time we're actually talking. But if I felt like I've known you for years now, just, chatting with you online on Facebook and Twitter. Right. And yeah, I think I can safely say that you are very nice, and your husband seems very nice as well. So
thank you. He is nice. He's nice. He's hiding, but I'll drag him to light. I drag him to light.
well, no.
And the same to you, by the way. It's not. Absolutely. So it was such a pleasure. I mean, I just had the greatest time. I mean, I thought I would be tired, but when I started talking and you just got me,
more motivated. Well, I'm delighted to hear. It's been an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you to everyone watching the chat, and thank you to all the podcast listeners out there as well. Again, they really are a lovely community. I think
they are amazing.
which really, really supportive as well. Well, look, the very, very best of luck with for Capia. I hope you continue to get these great reviews. I hope it does well, and I hope you can continue making games as well. And I look forward to playing it.
Thank
and
you.
So thank you so much, Anna. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
It was pleasure all mine.